Hi everybody, welcome to Guitar Made Simpler. I'm Riley Wilson, and we're going to talk today about something that's of importance to every single musician, and that is the P word. I'm talking about practice. You know, it's very interesting. People that start an instrument have high hopes and they're willing to work at something for a few weeks. Sometimes after a while they get a little bit discouraged, and of course the big challenge for those of us that have been playing at the guitar or any other instrument for years and years is how to be excited about practice. I've got some suggestions. Some of these are contained in the text Guitar Made Simpler, but there's a lot of information here I'd like to share with you that I think will help you to have success starting today. First of all, let's talk about some of the information that's contained in the book Guitar Made Simpler. You'll notice on pages 14 and 15 that I've got a daily practice schedule as well as some tips about how to practice most effectively. So let's talk about that for a moment. First of all, one of the most important things you can do to succeed with music is to get a convenient time. Those of you that have been on a sports team, for example, have had practice at the same time every day. Those of you that participated in college athletics probably had weight training early in the morning and then maybe practice in the evening and then maybe film study in between. So those of you that have done that sort of activity understand very well the importance of a regular, consistent time. What I tell students is that if all possible, if you're a student, for example, from school, you may have the best success either practicing first thing in the morning before school, or what I think works even better for a lot of students is first thing in the afternoon after school. Think about this school, if you're attending it, whether you're attending elementary school, middle school, high school, college, or postgraduate work, oftentimes you may be involved in classes 3 to 5 days a week for 8 hours at a time. And what's the last thing that most of us want to do after 8 hours of an activity? More of the same activity, right? So one of the things I've suggested over the years to students is to perhaps come in from school, get a snack, something healthy like a protein drink or a protein bar or a piece of fruit, some nuts, something positive, something good, not necessarily a bunch of sugar, and also get a large glass of water. It's always a good idea to stay hydrated, particularly when you practice the guitar. And then sit down and practice for maybe 30 to 45 minutes if you can do that long. Some of you may have trouble early on being able to press the strings long enough without creating tremendous finger discomfort. So you may need to split the practice up, maybe do 15 minutes earlier in the day and then 15 minutes when you get in from school, or maybe 15 to 20 minutes after school, and then maybe a little bit more in the evening when your fingers have had a chance to recuperate a little bit. But let's talk about some specifics. As I said, number one, the most important thing is a consistent time. Try to do the same time every day and clear this with your family. Let them know that at this time you're going to turn off all the cell phones, the internet. You're going to get rid of all the distractions and really concentrate your very best effort for the next 15 to 30 minutes or however long you've got budgeted. The second thing, of course, is to clear your area of all work distractions, which means turning off that cell phone, which means not answering the telephone. Ask your family for help to not be interrupted at this time, and that will make a big difference as well. Have a good music stand like we've got back here. Have a metronome, have a tuner. Of course, you're going to have your copy of Guitar Made Simpler, aren't you? I'll put in a passion plea about our book, which you can get, of course, directly from me, or you can also get this on Amazon.com. But just to have your materials close by. Once you've done all those things, the first thing to do is to tune the instrument. Again, those of you that are beginning guitar right now are very, very fortunate. We've got electronic tuners that make that very, very easy. You can often get one of those on your smartphone, so that makes that whole process of tuning the instrument easy. But make a habit of doing that the very first thing each day. You'll notice with the practice log that we've got in Guitar Made Simpler, the very first thing that we have on here is warm-up, and I think that's very, very important. Again, those of you that are going to be playing a musical instrument, have never, for example, participated in sports, don't understand the importance of warming up, but it's really critical that you spend some time each day warming up your hands, getting ready to do that. In our book, the accuracy drills, accuracy 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are very important with that. You can also, as you get later in the book, work on the hammering drills, some tremolo with the right hand. Those are all important things to do. And then just continue to work through it. Let's talk about the practice log and physically how to do it. It has so many people over the years that have really gotten confused about this, but if you'll simply read what it says, on the daily practice schedule, it says write the date practiced in the box below. Those of you that when we first get our first lesson or two under our belts, I'll typically mark this up for you, and you'll usually see in that very first thing under warm-up is we'll generally take track 4, which is our quarter note picking drill. And the idea is you'll set the timer for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. You'll play that exercise. And in case you're forgetting how it goes, it's played like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Of course, we repeat it, right? And the first time you want to count it aloud all the way through. The second time you're going to start at 40 beats a minute and speed it up gradually. Once you can play it at the goal tempo, then you finish with that exercise. But the idea is, and this is a very, very important thing to understand, is what I consider the second most important part of this, and that is the daily metronome settings at the bottom. The idea here is very simple. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you actually play the examples in time with a metronome. And the idea is that we're going to use a timer. This is a little timer that some of you have used with me in our lessons here at the Turquoise Room, to work on a specific thing for a certain amount of time. When the timer rings or squeals or beeps or goes off, in the top portion of our practice log up here, you're going to write down the date that you practiced. For example, if it's the 21st of May, you write 5-21 or May 21 in that box for that day, right? And that's very, very important. The second part of it, which is just as important, if not more so, is you're going to write down on the bottom right here how fast you're able to play that with 2 or less mistakes. You know, when I was at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California, we spent some time talking about what we used to call the red light mentality. The red light mentality is very simple. That means if we take you into a high-dollar studio in New York or Los Angeles or Nashville or London or wherever, put you in a room with a fancy microphone and a mic preamp and expensive gear and an engineer behind the glass and 4 or 5 people looking for you to screw up, well, you don't. By the way, that's the little timer going off, and you'll find as you use the timer for 3 or 4 minutes here, 8 minutes there, 6 minutes here, 10 minutes there, that the whole practice time goes much quicker. And use the timer to really help you to spend the amount of time that you need to spend on that example and then move on to the next thing. It's very, very important, as I said, with this red light mentality, we get used to practicing without mistakes. Early on, that means you're going to play stuff eventually at 40 beats per minute, which is very slow, right? But over a period of time, you get faster and faster at it. That's very, very critical, is that we practice in time with a metronome. Over a period of time, you speed up. The tempos continue to rise. When you're at the goal tempo, then we get new material to practice. And I think it's very, very important that you have a positive attitude about playing the guitar and about practicing. Remember, nobody comes to this earth immediately a great musician. Most musicians have spent a lifetime spending long hours practicing. Steve Vai, of course, is one of the musicians that reportedly practiced up to 9 hours a day when he was in high school. Yngwie Malmsteen practiced 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day. And it's very simple. If you want to get good, there's no substitute for putting in the time. That's why I tell people it's really important that you have, when you practice the guitar, a practice routine, that you have not only a practice routine, but you have a log of what you do. Those of you, for example, that have weight trained or interested in bodybuilding or powerlifting probably have a log of how much weight you lift, how many reps, how many sets, etc. There are a lot of bodybuilders, for example, that keep food journals because they want to know everything about their training and make sure that they're having success. Now, those of you that have been with me for a little while may find that the little 30-minute routine that we have in our book isn't working. So this is one of the older ones that we used to do before we did the book, and it's a longer thing that you can put more different things in. And as I talked to many of you about this recently, you can change up what you do. For example, let's say you've gone through the first 3/4 of the book. You may want to still play the 8th note picking drill in lesson 4, track 15. You may want to play that maybe 1 day a week just to kind of keep that in the mix, as it were. You may wish to play the triplet drill, track 75. Again, these are all open string examples. This one played like this: 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. You may want to play that every 3 days. You may want to do the 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E. You may want to do that every 2 days or whatever. And the advantage of having a system like this, where you can put in specific things for different days, is that allows you the opportunity to practice specific things, maybe not necessarily every day, but every 2 or 3 or 4 days, and keeping things in rotation. In order for me, when I play weddings, I have to practice my classical guitar repertoire. So I try and do that at least 1 or 2 days a week just to keep my fingers limber, to remember to be able to play the pieces accurately and to sound good doing it. One of the other things that's a neat little trick to do is to play on different guitars. If you've got the luxury of an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, then bounce back and forth on both of them. You can often develop a different feel in one instrument that helps with the other one. We've also got a longer daily metronome settings handout that, again, you can get if you simply email me, Riley@guitarmadesimpler.com. Be happy to get that to you, and that also will help. I think one of the most important things about practicing the guitar is to realize that the world that we live in reward people for achievement and accomplishment. They don't reward people for effort. You've heard, oh, we'll give you an A for effort. There is none of that with guitar. Guitar playing, I tell people, guitar is an equal opportunity offender. It makes fools of all of us when we get started. I'm no different. I still run into struggles on a regular basis, and I'm working through them as I practice the guitar. And there are struggles that you and everybody else has. But I think what's important is to have a routine. And again, if you have questions about this, then get in touch with me, email me, or call me. We'll talk about that to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. You always want to continue to practice smoothly, to practice with a metronome. Again, we do that in our lessons all the time, as you well know. And we do that on our Skype lessons as well. For those of you that aren't able to be in town with me that still want to do lessons with me, we'll use the metronome again when we do stuff like that. So just to recap is, first of all, be sure that you have a regular time that you practice every day. Be sure that that's a time that you kind of decompress from the world and turn everything off. Turn off the cell phone and the telephone and the internet and all that, and just concentrate on doing the very best you can for that period of time. If you practice 30 to 45 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, I tell people you can learn to play the guitar. You can get quite good. You may need later on to spend more time on it, but at least 30 to 45 minutes a day will guarantee that you're going to have the sort of success that you want. Use your practice log. Use the timer to protect you from your worst enemy. Your worst enemy? Yourself. That's right. Spend a little bit of time doing the things that you want to do, and then once you're done with it, move on and do the next thing. I think these tips and techniques, as I said, if you'll work with these and be diligent with them, you'll find success. The other thing that I always tell people is that the whole purpose of the practice setting, and particularly the metronome settings, is to show you how much you've accomplished as you begun the guitar. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. I'm Riley Wilson for Guitar Made Simpler.